What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Guerilla Hockey with JJ and Jesse. Jesse is back in the house. It's been, what, like a month, Jesse?
I think it's been a month since you and I have been on this show together, yes.
Yeah, and of course, Jesse came straight from the airport. You could tell he's still wearing his airport fit. So don't throw any stones at him. He's just trying to be comfortable and courteous.
Shouldn't say that my Crocs are my airport fit. I wear these as often as I possibly can.
Oh, no.
If I could wear these up into the press box, I would.
Ugh. I don't know if I'd sit by you if that was the case.
You say that until you try them on.
I probably won't try them
Comfy.
on.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't let you try these ones. These are too special to me.
Anyway, Jesse's back from the airport from his flight to Detroit. Avalanche lose in Detroit last night in overtime. Jesse, I think I want to start this podcast because it's been so long since you and I have sat here together, mainly because you've been on the road.
Yeah.
And what's been going on the road? A ton of Avalanche losses this year. The Avalanche 13, and 5 on the road this year. I want to get your thought. Me and Evan have been spitting it back and forth the last couple weeks. What do you think is troubling this team on the road? What can you pinpoint, if anything, that is making this team just not a good road team this year?
At this point, like right now, I think it's in their head.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that they are struggling on the road and they're like giving some games away. The disaster of a 6-game road trip, they all say to a man still today that the Rangers game was their best game of that trip. And they found a way to lose it late. Last night in Detroit, and granted, you're talking about a 1-0 lead. You know, you're waiting for that to break at some point. But with just a few minutes left, the Red Wings tie it up. The Avs take a penalty with just seconds left on the clock, and it looked like it was maybe going to cost them the point. They had opportunities in overtime, but there was a different vibe in the locker room last night. Last night wasn't we're disappointed about the loss. It felt a little like, son of a bitch, like, come on.
Getting frustrated with themselves over a bigger stretch here.
I don't know if you watched my chat with Cale Makar after. Cale Makar always stands up, speaks loudly. Yep, this is what's going on. I struggled here. And I was sitting there and I asked him, hey, can I grab you? And he said, yeah, go ahead. Or he said, yeah, sure. So I stood back and waited for him. Because, again, I always apologize probably too much to guys in the locker room. But, like, I do feel bad when we walk up to him like, hold on, I'm getting this done. So I took a step back, let him get his skates off or whatever. And he looks at me and goes, I'm just going to sit. Go ahead. And that was the first thing to me where I was like, ugh, this feels different in here. I walked into that room after the 4-0 loss in Florida, and Cale Makar stood in there and said, hey, we got to be better. We got to do this. We got to do that. That wasn't acceptable. There was a sense last night that I got of just really frustrated with the results they're getting on the road.
They're just not looking like themselves, plain and simple. And you can even look at, I think it was 10 games in a row the Avalanche had beaten the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, and again, one little thing here or there, the Avalanche win that game, right? It wasn't a disaster. It wasn't a debacle, 4-0 like Florida game was.
Right,
this was a close game. They almost had it, lost it in overtime.
Had a couple chances in overtime, too.
Even look at Bowen Byram's breakaway there. He could have won it right there. So not awful by any means. You still get a point. So I think there's positives to take away, but I think there's bigger things at hand, like you're mentioning, like Cale Makar's even mentioning, that they're having a hard time solving. And some of these things have been apparent all season long and haven't been able to make any progress on them. Some of them are maybe some things that are popping up just now that they need to iron out, and over time will probably iron out. But it's just kind of one of those parts of the season.
Well, and I do also feel it's a little bit of what you just said, where it's just like you're in this weird part of the season. But again, last night, this team is very good at, and it's led by Jared Bednar, at focusing on the process and not necessarily the results, win or lose. Who was just telling me a couple days ago, you're going to have games that you play really well and you don't win. You're also going to have games that you don't play that well and you do win. Mm-hmm. And that's why, again, that's part of the thing, part of what I think makes this team as good as they are, is that they are very good at stepping back and saying, "Woof, yeah, we won 4-3, or 4-2, but yikes, that was ugly. That was this, that, and the other." Last night, I felt like they did a lot of things right. To me, when I look at where this team is at, the results are getting on the road. What you just said of it's that time of year, or it's an odd time of year, like. I just think that they are kind of going through it a little bit right now where they're almost expecting things to go wrong on the road. They get a lead and then look at the game in Washington, that the one game they did win on the 6-game trip. They jump out to that 2-0 lead. They're playing great. They're playing fantastic. Kind of a fluky play goes against them. It's in the back of their net, and it felt like the Avs couldn't recover. And Washington gets another one, and suddenly you're right back in a tie game, and you're having to scramble a bit. And again, they come out on the right side of that one. But again, just a little bit like that last night, it felt like, where Detroit tied it, and then suddenly the Avs were having to just hold on. Mm-hmm. As where I think when this team is at its best, and what we see from them at home, is they don't sit on leads. They don't sit back and play not to lose. They play to win. They're pushing pace. They're pushing. They're skating north-south. It just feels like when things start to get away from them on the road right now, they're panicking a little bit and kind of, to use the phrase that they used earlier in the season, start freelancing, and it's leading to the bad results.
Yeah, it almost felt like last night they were hoping to win 1-0.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And we both talked about the weird point of the season. I mean, the Avalanche aren't the only ones. We see Dallas sliding right now. We know what's going on in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Edmonton is going through it again. It's just that time of year. And you know me, Jesse, I've been a bettor since I was 18. I'm 35 now. Mm-hmm. I've been betting a long time. And in doing so, I've learned that there's a kind of a pattern in an NHL season. The early parts of the season are tough to bet on because you're not sure what new teams are coming out, what new guys, new additions on individual teams, how they're going to make the rest of the team look. So it's really tough to predict results. Mm-hmm. Then about Christmas time, December, there's a bit of a slowdown, and the teams you expect to win are winning. Mm-hmm. And then right around this time, it becomes unpredictable again because some teams are pushing for a playoff spot. Some teams have checked out. Some teams are still trying to figure themselves out. And then at the end of the season, it becomes predictable again.
Interesting.
So I just feel like we're kind of in that stage of it's chaos, and it's meant to be. It's like this every year. So I don't want to get too caught up on tough results right now because, like I've said a lot of times, March presents a magnificent opportunity for the Avalanche to rebound and really pile on some wins.
You're 100% right, and I'm with you. Like, I don't get caught up in what's their most recent result. Because, like, at the end of the day, when you take a step back, here's what's so funny. And I learned myself and Megan Angley last year learned firsthand how much Twitter isn't a real place. If you go get on Twitter right now, everybody's losing their mind. And if you remember early in the season last year, the Avs lost to the Chicago Blackhawks in Chicago. And on Twitter, I mean, it was literally, every reply, every tweet about the Avalanche was like, they're going to miss the playoffs. They should probably sell off a couple assets at the deadline, try to recoup some picks. We'll see, blah, blah, blah. And we went and stood out front of Ball Arena and asked people, 1 to 10, how worried about the Avalanche? And 95% of people said 3 or less. So I know people aren't actually freaking out right now.
Just the Twitter people.
Right, just the Twitter people.
Twitter users.
But what is so funny about the Twitter users freaking out, had they won last night, had they gotten the one extra point, they would be back tied for first place in the Central. With the team, and here's the other part that fucking kills me. The amount of replies I get that are like, this team can't hang with Dallas or Winnipeg. It's like, oh, the team they're tied with and the team they're ahead of in the standings. Yeah, they probably can't hang. Winnipeg has games in hand. But it's just, I step back and look at all that and say they're comfortably in a playoff spot. They're going to get in. They may have to start on the road if they don't get things cleaned up. But you deal with that. And you trust that the group you've put together, whatever they do here in a couple weeks, You say we trust that this is a group that can flip the switch and go. As they've shown they have the ability to every year of this core making it to the playoffs with the exception of last year.
Yeah, it's like people who listen to our show a lot have heard us bring up Mark, right? Mark helps us around here a lot at Guerilla Sports. Really brilliant when it comes to videography and production. Not so much a hockey fan, right? But the last, I would say, 4 or 5 weeks that I've seen Mark, he asks us the same question he even asked us today. Are the Avalanche still in second place? And we're like, yeah, they are. Everything's okay. They are still in second place. They are still right there in the mix. But I wanted to get to the part about the one-goal game that we were talking about a second ago, right? It feels like the Avalanche, many times this year, and maybe even last year, the Avalanche go up early and then somehow find a way to piss it away a little bit, right? So it feels like that one-goal lead just isn't enough for these guys. It was interesting to me, I forget, one of the recent home games, and Jared Bednar started going off on how they don't have to fill the net. It was the Vancouver win. We don't have to fill the net to win. We proved today that it's good defense, just playing the right way. And so I think there's something interesting there because you're not seeing them score goals right now. This last month, they have scored an average of 2.222222 goals per game. Not typical of the Avalanche, right? They like to fill that net. So there's a little bit more to look into the goal scoring. I think that's a big issue, not just with the road. I mean, they've had a road-heavy schedule this month, so it looks like losses.
Let's also add this little bit of context. And I'm not even talking about being away from home because obviously you had the break there in the middle. But if my really quick math is correct, I believe 12 of the last 16 have been on the road.
I think so, yeah.
That's again, I'm not talking about being away from home. I know they got a lot of time at home on the break, on vacation. I'm not talking about that. That's just a lot of games to play away from your building. And in other people's home rink. To your point, everyone's trying to ramp up. There's a little bit of extra energy. The Red Wings are in a playoff chase. It's not an excuse. It's not anything. Just it is interesting. They had the 5-game road trip, the All-Star break, or the 5-game road trip, couple games at home, the All-Star break, 6-game road trips, couple games at home, then last night. And that's just, geez Louise, that's a lot of games on the road.
Yeah, and I guess more my point was kind of that I don't feel like it has much to do with the home versus road. They just happen to be playing a stretch of road games.
Yes.
But what's going on is they're just not finding the back of the net. They're not finding ways to fill the net. Remember early on in the season, Jesse, when we had our own little phrase, when the Avalanche win, the Avalanche cover the puck line. And I still think that's very true. Yeah, we've seen a couple one-goal wins recently, but if the Avalanche aren't absolutely dominating from an offensive standpoint, it feels like they're finding a way to struggle in this games.
And to me, that's like what you just said right there is problematic. Like that is an issue. People who have followed me, who have watched shows and stuff that I've been on, knows I'm officially out on the Edmonton Oilers until further notice because they have the issue you're talking about. They have to outscore their problems every night. I was laughing. I was watching an Oiler game. It was Oilers-Bruins 2 nights ago. And it was a national game on TNT. And whoever it was doing play-by-play was gushing, going on and on and on about Evan Bouchard and Matthias Ekholm and their expected goals for. They lead the league. Nobody's even close. Blah, blah, blah. These two guys, their expected goals for. Oh, my gosh. And it's quiet for a second. And then Eddie Olczyk goes, now, the one thing to keep in mind is when you play as many minutes with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, yeah, your expected goals for should be pretty high. Having a high expected goals for should not be the defining quality of the defense of your team. What made the Avs so elite 2 years ago when they won the Stanley Cup and last year when they were dealing with the roster uncertainty and then the Val Nichushkin stuff in the Seattle series, what got the Avs even as far as they did last year and all the way over the to the top of the mountain 2 years before that was their defensive details, their team defense. They won the Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final 2-1. did that game ever, maybe with the exception of the one Nikita Kucherov one-timer that Kemper had to make a big save on, there was never really a moment where you're like, holy shit, they're just holding on. Like, it was just sound, structured, the right plays, make the right pinches, you get the puck, make a smart play. If you don't have a play, get it off the glass, get it out, get a change. That, to me, is what seems like the Avs are struggling with right now. They keep getting stuck in these long shifts. They're running around their zone. They're scrambling. Guys aren't where they're supposed to be. And even the overtime goal last night, Patrick Kane had 20 feet to walk right between the dots and take a shot. That's not a winning formula. And so for me, it's not even about filling the net, which, to your point, they've done in the past. It makes them successful, but like, it's never bad to score goals. But for this team, I truly do believe that this group has what it takes to win a Stanley Cup if they can get that part of the game figured out and cleaned up and dialed in. I think you need Georgiev to be one save better than the other guy. I think he's got the ability to do that. You have three of the league's biggest game breakers. Very few teams can say they have that. And you have a strong, deep D-core. You got to get things figured out in your own zone. If they do that, this team can go as deep as they want. If their plan is to try to outscore what's happening in their own zone, you got maybe a round, maybe two.
No, I hear you. I think the defensive zone from all fronts, from defensive players, from forwards, that has to be seriously looked at and dissected from Coach Bednar and really addressed. But as far as the goal scoring, I mean, you even touched on it with the road losses. It's very much in their heads. It's between the ears, right? It's mental. You see it on the power play, which we'll get to in a second as another issue of theirs. They're overthinking. They're trying so hard to get that cross-seam pass. And back to Jared Bednar's press conference after Vancouver where he talked about filling the net, and he also started talking about how they scout the goalies, right? And this is where I was like, this kind of feels like overthought. This kind of feels like this is why this team struggles to score at times, because he's like, oh, well, we look at the goalie stats as, what they get beat on, whether it's a cross ice pass or one-timers from the blue line, and that just seems like such over-analysis, which is great. I know that's Jared Bednar's job, the coaching staff. They're supposed to look at all that. But at some point, you just kind of got to say, just fire the puck. Just play hockey and just find ways to get it to the back of the net and not try to dissect, oh, no, we have to get this guy sliding left to right or else we're not going to score, right?
Yeah, and it's hard for me to say because I don't know how much typically goes into that. I don't know how much other teams do that. But I do completely agree with the fact that I think they are overthinking a lot right now. Mikko Rantanen told me last week, 2 weeks ago, because I asked him, I said, when we were on that 6-game road trip, things weren't going well. I said, do you think it's an effort issue? Do you think it's an execution issue? I was just trying to get his perspective. And he said, no, I don't think it's effort. He said, if anything, and I thought it was a funny way of saying it, but I understood what he meant. He said, if anything, I think there's times where we're trying too hard. And he's talking about what you're saying. And, he's like, we're gripping the stick and we're trying to make the extra pass and we're trying to, put it into a window that's this big instead of taking the easy pass to, a lane that you've got that's this fucking big or, whatever. And so I do think I think that's a real thing for them right now is that there's a lot of stick squeezing going on and it has to be the perfect pass and the perfect shot.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
And I think the special teams we can point right at. In the month of February, the Avalanche have allowed 6 power play goals and have scored 1.
Oh, just one?
Just 1. Maybe it's 2. I could be wrong. But either way,
I thought it was 2 for 29.
I got 1 from Arturi Lehkonen. That's about it. I just did the quick look back right before the show, so I might have missed one. But either way, there's a discrepancy there, and it's heavy. And I think it's not what we're used to seeing out of this team. The Avalanche power play is used to being dominant. They get the most power plays in the NHL. They should be capitalizing on them. And I think the penalty kill early on in the season was something that they really prided themselves on. And now suddenly it's a a point of struggle. Now, not terribly. I look back at the Vancouver game again, and the penalty kill won them that game at the end, if you remember. Sam Girard really making that great play at the end to clear it. So I think the penalty kill has been there at times. It helped them out last night at the very end, but at the same time, they also gave up a penalty kill goal earlier in the game. So I think there's a little give and take with the penalty kill, but there's good parts about it. They're just getting scored on right now.
Well, and I'm with you on the penalty kill. I don't think the penalty kill is necessarily an issue, but they're losing the special teams battle every night. Every night for the last month, they're losing the special teams battle. And Jared Bednar has talked about that. That's losing hockey. Like, doesn't matter how good your penalty, unless you're going to go 5 for 5 every night on the PK, you have to start producing on the power play. Yes, you're missing Val Nichushkin. I'm not including Gabe Landeskog anymore in any of these. Like, oh, you're missing this guy because it's been 2 years. But, like, yes, you're missing Val Nichushkin, who was huge on the power play earlier this year. But you got Artturi Lehkonen back. Like, for all intents and purposes, that top unit should be pretty damn close to what you would want with a fully healthy lineup. Right.
The only difference is Jonathan Drouin being still in there, and you can't tell me that Jonathan Drouin is such a detriment to that power play that he's the reason it's terrible.
Right, and I would honestly even make the argument there's been several power plays where, like, he's the only one out there distributing. So I don't know if that's... Damn. I fixed it earlier, and it just fell again. I don't know if... I don't know if you change personnel. I don't know if you say, hey, we're not going to play a system tonight. Just go score a goal. And obviously I'm being facetious when I say it, but, like, I don't know, but you have to find some way to at least get back to even footing on the special teams battle. Because, their penalty kill helps them out at the end of the game against Vancouver. But how many other of these games in the last month can you point to and say, win the special teams and you win that game?
Yeah.
Break even on special teams and you win that game. Break even on special teams and you win that game. Score a power play goal and you win that game. Like, that, their special teams is something that I actually don't know if we are collectively talking about enough. That you put in a couple more power play goals and suddenly this record looks very different over the last month, and even your road record over the last 3 weeks probably feels a lot better.
And back to Cale Makar, right? You said he had a different demeanor last night, and in watching his post-game interview, he even kind of called himself out. He was this close to calling somebody else out. I don't know if it was a handful of people, but he's like, me giving up the puck, and mostly me giving up the puck, right? He was very down on himself. And obviously he hasn't had a point in a stretch of games. 7 games in a row now without a point from Cale Makar. So he doesn't see himself performing up to his expectations. But you can point to that directly as, if Cale Makar's not playing that well, either is the power play, neither is the penalty kill, and neither is the goal scoring in general, right? I mean, that's a guy who produces a point per game, and if he has 7 in a row with no points, then the goal scoring is going to go down. So, man, you telling me that he doesn't want to stand up, part of me thinks, is that his body again kind of acting up a little bit and saying, man, we're tired, we need a break, or is he just
I think he's
deflated
frustrated
emotionally?
When was the last time, genuinely, Cale Makar, at any level, has gone 7 games without a point in his life?
Yeah. I don't know.
I honestly don't know if he ever has. Like, this may be the first time ever since he started playing organized hockey that he's gone this long without a point. It seemed like disappointment last night from him. Disappointed himself, disappointed in the stretch that he's kind of going through. And the other part, too, that's so tough, like, I don't think Cale Makar has been bad. I don't think he's looked like himself. I think he's made a couple plays that have been very un-Cale Makar-esque. But, like, I don't think he's been a detriment out there, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I don't know, man. I just think last night felt kind of like and I'm hesitant to say this because I'll say this and they'll go get their heads kicked in tomorrow, but, like, last night felt a little bit more rock bottom than Florida.
Interesting.
The vibe in the room last night was just like, I'm over this. Like, we're over this. Over losing.
And this happens every year, right? I think last year it was the Chicago Blackhawks right around this time. They beat the Avalanche, and everybody's like, oh, this season's done.
Yeah.
And then they went on a run, and March came around, and they popped off, just like they're probably going to do this year.
Well, and again, that is the other thing that, with everything that you and I are saying, I think everything that you and I are saying factually is true about the power play, and obviously we have our own opinions on stuff that can you take it however you want. But like, the end of the day, this group, these players, the high-end talent, the depth on defense, this group could extremely easily go rattle off 10 in a row. And suddenly you forget all about all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, go back to the Cup year. I think they lost 7 of their last 8 going into the playoffs. And I bookmarked a ton of them, and I never went back to them. The amount of replies I got. You've clearly never watched hockey if you think a team can just turn it on. And then they went and had one of the most dominant playoff runs in NHL history. So this group, this core can do it. It's just not coming together right now. And
that's exactly it. I like the way you put that right there, because that's exactly how it's going to come out of my mouth. It's not coming together right now. We're not going to find a lot of stretches of time where Nathan McKinnon's slowing down his point production, Cale Makar's slowing down his point production, the power play has slowed down, the penalty kill has suddenly struggled, and I guess I wasn't going to get into Annunen because he actually played decently well, but
then here's the other thing too, where how many people, the Avs were rolling going into the break. How many times? I think you and I even had the conversation this break comes at a bad time for the Avs.
Yep.
They were really in a groove.
Yep.
And they were really rolling along. And coming out of the break, they just haven't been able to get back on that same footing. I have every reason to believe, as disappointing as last night was for them, I have every reason to believe that they will get back to that. And here's the other thing. You just won't convince me that the trade deadline looming isn't at bare minimum on a couple of guys' minds. Bowen Byram, Ryan Johansson, maybe a Freddie Olofsson who was scratched last night, knowing the Avs might need to move some money around. There are a few guys in this group that are probably watching their phones a little extra closely here for the next couple of weeks. And I remember Jared Bednar telling us at one point over these last couple of years that this time of year just weighs on certain guys. Whether that be, am I going to get moved? Is my friend going to get moved? Who are we going to bring in? Are we going to bring in anybody?
Does he like Michael Jackson, whoever we're bringing in?
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's their win song, of course.
Yeah. Billie Jean.
Yeah.
Right.
I
all
hear
of
what
that.
you're saying. Does he fit in? That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah.
Right. And so I do also think that in addition to everything that we're talking about on the ice, you just won't convince me that that's not going through a couple of guys' heads. I think this is maybe the first time in a couple of years. I don't think there's anybody in that room that's disliked or on the outs. But I just don't. I think there's a couple guys that maybe don't quite fit the chemistry mold that we've seen this locker room have over the last several seasons. And again, I have every reason to believe that they're going to get it figured out. I sit here on February 23rd. I think this team can win a Stanley Cup. Genuinely. I think this team can win a Stanley Cup this year. But that doesn't happen without them getting a lot of stuff straightened out.
Yeah, and let's also, keep in mind that the Avalanche were one Bowen Byram finished breakaway away from winning 4 out of 5.
Dude, 100%.
Right?
Yep.
4 out of the last 5. So to get away with a point, and they're still playing decently well. They still have a lot of home games ahead of them. And again, that month of March, I think, is just so juicy for the Avalanche that they're really going to pull ahead and probably end up the month of March in first place in the Central. I'm calling it right now.
All right.
Calling it.
February 23rd.
Is that a hot take?
I don't think it's that hot to take.
I guess with that conversation of some guys and the chemistry not quite fitting in, Not that their personalities don't fit in, but maybe their play style, right? It's like sometimes you get a goalie who's hot on one team and then goes to a new team and you're like, why does this goalie suck? Or even quarterbacks in the NFL. You were having a conversation with our studio manager, John, about Russell Wilson, and it's like, why did this guy not fit in? He used to be good. It's kind of that same idea, right? So let's look at Ryan Johansson and how well he's been playing lately, because it feels like, he got 4 points in a decent stretch of games. I know they're just points. You got more hockey to play than just that moment when you're shooting the puck, right? But he is contributing from like
a physics standpoint. I can't figure out how this thing keeps falling like that.
I don't know. We even have it taped and everything.
Say.
But Ryan Johansson has contributed some points here and there, and it kind of feels like Zach Parise's entrance into the lineup may have something to do with that, with them playing together. But I think Johansson may be finding a little spurt of something here, while also not fully being able to walk.
All right. Is that what you I don't know. I disagree. I don't think he's been
I think he's been better. I'm not saying I'm looking at Ryan Johansson and be like, all right, he found it. This is it.
See, and again, I guess that's where when I'm watching him, I see better in shifts. I've seen more quality shifts out of him, I'll say, in the last 4 games.
I guess so. Even but now I'm backpedaling. Thanks a lot for challenging me on this one. But you're right. Even one of the goals he scored in that Vancouver game, I'm saying one of them. There was a shift that I remember watching him. The puck goes into the corner, and it's like he would have been the first one to that puck, and he didn't even go into the corner for it. He just went into the slot and did something else. So, and then later that shift ended up scoring. So I'm with you. It's not 100%, okay, Ryan Johansson has figured this out. He's now a valuable member of this team. But I see progress. I see him at least inching his way and not making all Avs fans rip out their hair and say, what is this guy doing on the team?
You know what I see?
A stack of Playboys.
What?
You would have had to listen to the last episode to understand that reference. If Evan was here, he would get it, but he's too busy buying Pearl Jam tickets today. I guess Pearl Jam.
You guys could have had Evan instead of me, but apparently Pearl Jam's more important than us. I see good coaching, and I see smart decision making.
Okay.
Jared Bednar has strapped Ryan Johansson with 2 players where he basically says, you have to go work. Otherwise, they'll work for you. And I think Ryan Johansson has benefited from that in the last week. I think Ryan Johansson's an outstanding individual. I think he's a very nice guy. I just think he's a short timer here in Colorado. I think that has set in with him. I think the organization understands that. And I just think everyone's kind of at this weird impasse right now where I do believe they are going to try to move on from him before March 8th. But if they can't, I mean, I really would be legitimately surprised if he's at training camp next year with the Colorado Avalanche. Like, I think the relationship has not gone the way anybody wanted it to. I think both sides understand that. Jared Bednar has used words like competitiveness and hunger when describing what he wants to see out of Ryan Johansson. This group,
that's like the 5th time you've done that.
Well, because you keep looking back there.
Yeah, you've never seen people that just look up to think, to process what you're saying. I just happen to be looking that direction, so I look up.
You look like you're making eye contact with somebody, so I keep waiting to turn around and see Mark standing there adjusting levels. But I like those are not. I hate you so much. Those are not words that you want your coach using when saying, "Gosh, we could just use some more."
Man, that guy would just try a little harder, right?
And I mean, how many times per game, JJ, do you and I either text each other if we're not together, or bump each other in the press box, where he's just standing straight up with his stick at his waist. And it's like, holy smokes. This group does not demand that you are the best, most skilled player on the ice. Andrew Cogliano is one of the most important players on this Avalanche team. Guy like Logan O'Connor, very important players, because they just work harder than everyone else. Not because they're these elite players who are constantly making show-stopping highlight reel plays. They just outwork everyone else on the ice. And you have a guy like Ryan Johansson, who, you and I talked about it the other day. What was the first thing Ryan Johansson told us at training camp? I believe it was the first answer he gave to us.
Right, that he was a 1C his whole life.
Been a 1C my whole life. We got a 1+ here, so I just got to come in and make his life easier. And I get the sense, this is purely speculative. Mm-hmm. I get the sense that there's a little bit of like I've been a 1C my whole life. I don't need you guys to tell me how to play center. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think it's ever worked.
That's a good theory. Now I'm going to go with my theory, and this is pure theoretical.
Theoretical. Yep.
Purely theoretical.
You got there.
And I know because this is such a touchy subject in the NHL, so I'm going to do very well to handle it delicately.
Great.
But what I see out of Ryan Johansson, I don't see a refusal to work hard. I don't see a refusal to be a competitive player. I see an inability.
Oh, interesting.
A physical inability. And let's look at last year. He finds himself on the injured list. Suddenly Barry Trotz starts saying he doesn't think that this player has what it takes to keep up with the speed in the NHL anymore. And Ryan Johansson says, you know what? I am going to prove you wrong. I'm going to show you. I'm going to try my best to do everything I can to still be an adequate NHL player. But I don't know what the hesitation to maybe throw him on the IR once or twice here throughout the season has been, because I don't see a fully healthy version of Ryan Johansson. And even the Avalanche posted the other day on their way to Detroit, right, a video of Ryan Johansson walking to the airplane. And it looked like Ryan Johansson was doing his hardest to not look like he had a limp or not look like he was in pain. He just walk as smoothly as you can. So what I'm saying is I'm speculating that there's quite the injury he still has and that he's dealing with, and there's just no quit in him to say, yes, I'm injured. And I don't know from the Avalanche standpoint what the hesitation would be to be like, hey, you're injured, like take a seat for a little bit. But I personally think that has a lot to do with it. I think I buy into your theory too. I think there's something to it. But I also just think he's just not 100% physically, simply said.
I'd agree with that, but if that's the case, I don't think it's an injury that he's going to get better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If we're talking about what you're saying, which I don't think is a crazy theory, I think we're more just at the point where it's like, this is just your reality now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was never, blazing speed guy to begin with. And what I think maybe the Avs were hoping was, okay, can you go park yourself in front of the net and be the big, mean, nasty? When I talked to Cale Makar last summer at the NHL Awards, and I asked him, what's Ryan Johansson like to play against? He goes, gosh, he's just, he's mean. He'll give you a shot when the ref's not looking. He gets in your head. He's always right in your hip pocket. Always has something to say, blah, blah, blah. And that's the part for me that I just
haven't seen. Yeah.
Like that was what, when Ryan Johansson was with the Predators and having to, the Avs were having to play against him, 3-4 times a season. That's what I remember, is that he was an offensive threat, maybe never the offensive threat that he was kind of billed as when he got to Nashville, but offensive player who was just mean and just a pain to play against. And I haven't seen that. Yeah,
I mean, look, he started the year at PP1. I think there's still a little bit of trust there because he's still on PP2, but we know how little time PP2 even gets.
Well, but so here's the other part with that. He is now not rolling out with PP2 if they're changing on the fly. Zach Parise. If the second power play unit is going out on a dead puck, Ryan Johansson will go out to take the faceoff. The last 3 or 4 times PP2 has been deployed, it's been on the fly, and he has not taken a rep. So it's just he continues to work his way down the lineup. He's now full-time centering Andrew Cogliano and Yoel Kiviranta. Like he is the fourth-line center. And truthfully, I actually think that's the spot he's worst fit for. Because those have to be your most highly competitive guys.
Yep.
And I just think that you are at a point where whether it's what you're talking about, whatever it is, it doesn't work anymore.
And as a result, the Avalanche just don't have a second line, right? With Johansson falling down the lineup, Val Nichushkin out of the lineup, of course, Gabe Landeskog or whoever, you just are missing a second line now. You're forced to use that Colton, Wood, O'Connor line as your second, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I honestly just think the Avalanche are missing a second line.
Yeah, I do. I'm intrigued by some combination of Lehkonen and Colton skating as a pseudo second line. We don't have to get into this right now. We'll have a couple more shows before trade deadline, but I am more and more entering into the camp just as I see how the market is shaping up. I'm more and more getting to the point of just saying, go get the player who you think makes you makes you the most better. How do you say that?
I think that's right. Makes you just better. I don't think you need to do most. It's redundant. I think you just say whichever player makes you better.
Because I think there's multiple players that can make them better, but I want
the most better.
Yeah. Whichever player you like the most and you think improves your team the most.
There you go. Good English.
I think you go out and do that. I think you move Ryan Johansson, clear out the money. And I think you make do with what you got. I think the Avs, if you can count Val Nichushkin in, which for right now we still have almost 2 full months till the end of the season, I'm going to remain on the side of yes, he'll be back. I think you have a mix. If you can add another guy that's like a bona fide top 6 or at bare minimum clear cut top 9, can move up and down the top 3 lines, I think you got a mix of 12 guys that you can make some magic with. I think a guy like Ross Colton is going to really shine in the playoffs for the way that this Avs team likes to play. I think Miles Wood, same thing. And I just think you've got some guys there in the middle that can make it work. You need one more piece. And gosh, I feel bad saying this because I do. I like Ryan Johansson a lot. I think he's a really, really good guy. And I'm with you. I think he wants it to work out. But I just think everyone understands that we're kind of past that.
Yeah, I agree. I guess looking at the depth of the team, those bottom 3 guys, right? We're still seeing Kiviranta in the lineup, who has yet to really do anything, even though he's in there night in and night out. We're seeing McDermott slip in when they need to. It sounded like Olofsson had a sickness last night. Cogliano had a sickness, so it was kind of an emergency to use McDermott. But I've been asking you for a while about guys like Tufte, or there's even Ben Myers, Poland, Andre Pavel. Those are guys that I think we haven't seen enough of this year, and we've seen too much of the other guys. So I'm not saying those guys are going to come in and make or break your season, but those are guys I think I'd like to see a little bit more of. And it's interesting, and this was actually a thought put in my mind by our mutual Twitter friend, Penguin Doodle, but remember how successful the Avalanche were at acquiring NCAA free agents, right? And now it seems like Jared Bednar is kind of at a point where he doesn't even want to use these guys. He gives them a shot, and then they're out, and we don't see them for months at a time. how's that going to affect the Avalanche in the future in bringing in these NCAA guys? And I guess what are your thoughts? 'Cause, I mean, I'm personally just in love with Tufte. He's the one name that stands out to me out of all those AHL guys that I wish I could see more NHL minutes from. I understand he's not exactly a fourth line type of player, but I also think he brings more to the table than a Kiviranta or a McDermott.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect their ability to go after these guys in the future. One, because Jason Poland, Sam Malinsky, Logan O'Connor, who's another example here of, Kerfoot going back, several seasons now. But like they've had Ben Myers, all of these guys have seen NHL minutes. And I think they're going to continue to be able to go to these guys and say, hey, we're a contending team and we're willing to give you a look and we're going to prioritize you as a prospect. We know Jared Bednar loves predictability. I think if I had to guess, that's probably why Yoel Kiviranta is still drawing into the lineup every night. Jared Bednar knows I'm going to get nothing, but I know what kind of nothing I'm going to get. I know the type of nothing I'm going to get isn't going to be a bunch of turnovers and mistakes.
Yeah, I get you. Offensively, nothing. Defensively, he plays the right way.
Yeah, he's passable. And I do also think some of that has to do with two things. The season is starting to ramp up. This is not develop your prospects time. Two, and this is the one that is hard to keep in mind because of the way that the league is set up. Like the Eagles are in a race too. Like the Eagles need to win games as well. Like that's an organization and a franchise that has to be successful independently. Mm-hmm. And so I do think there's a little bit of that of like, hey, if you really need one of these guys and you think that they genuinely give you a better chance, yeah, every time. But if we're just trying to shuffle the deck chairs, what's the sense in constantly rotating this lined up, mixing things around? I think they're trying to find some level of consistency, some level of, consistency.
Chemistry.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That's another word.
I get it. I'm with you. I just felt like it was a good topic to bring up on the podcast. Sleepy. That jet lag's kicking in.
I got up at, dude. All right, let's take a pause from all the.
No, we're ready to start winding down anyway.
Yeah. One. Do you know what time zone Detroit is in?
I would guess the Eastern.
All right. Well, you're smarter than me. I thought the
only reason I know that is because Indiana, for some reason, my wife's from Indiana. So, and for some reason, parts of Indiana are in the Eastern time zone, despite it being very much in the center of the country. So I just went with that.
So it is in the Eastern time zone. I thought it was Central. I don't know why. I was asked to do a hit with our friends over at Fox 31, and I coordinated it all out. I was like, "Yep, let's do it at 4:30 or whatever, whatever time, 4 p.m. Mountain Time." So I went and got lunch, got all this stuff. Back in front of my computer, 5 minutes till 5, and I texted our buddy Mick. And I was like, hey, I'm on whenever you want to jump. And he was like, ooh, okay, let me see if I can get on there early. Sorry. Let me see if I can make it work. And I was like, the hell, bro? What do you mean, see if we can make this work? And then I looked at my phone. And I was like, he just said something that would be an hour from now. And so I went and pulled up the world clock. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the dumbest person ever. And so I had to apologize to him. Never mind. Don't try to scramble. Carry on. Normal time is planned. So there was that.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get it twisted. You've almost hit every single NHL rink this year. You've been all over the country.
3 short. I'm 4 short this season. I'm 3 short of all 32.
I feel like that would jumble anyone's brains. So if there's anyone out there who's judging you for messing up the Eastern versus Western, Middle time zone, Central, Mountain.
Thank you. And then this morning, dude, I've had a few flights, and I genuinely, I really don't mind early travel. I find the airports are typically a little bit easier, and when you're taking one of the first flights out of the day, your odds of hitting delays and stuff like that are just way lower. So I don't mind it in most instances. I've had a few 6 a.m. Dude, I've had a 5:45 a.m. flight this year. Those, you have to get up so early. It's not even, like, you're not even sleeping. You're napping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you take a 2.5 hour nap, you get up, go to the airport, start your day, then you got to, take another. This was a weird one because, like, I got back to my room, got everything packed up as I always do the night before, got everything ready. I was in bed at like 11:30. Scrolled my phone a bit, called my wife, phone down, going to sleep by, just say midnight, right? Well, then my alarm went off like at 6. And now you're just into like, oh, that wasn't enough sleep. Now I'm just tired.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like 6 and 6:20, the alarm goes off, get out of bed. Like, first one goes off at 6, second one 6:20, get out of bed, shower to try to wake myself up.
You're a 2-alarm type of guy?
Oh, I'm usually like a 4 or 5. For stuff like that, I'm a 4 or 5 just to make sure. Are you not?
No, I just need the one.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's honestly, like, on this is maybe a bad example because morning skate's at 10:30. But like on an Avs morning skate day, we're like, yeah, I know I'm going to be up. I can do just one. But for something like that this morning, like for a flight, an early flight, I always set.
See, for me, flights and golf. If I have to wake up early, I usually wake up before my alarm just because the anxiety of missing it is greater than my want to sleep.
So game 6, second round, 2022 in St. Louis. The Avs blew game 5 in spectacular fashion. So everyone after the game is scrambling to get flights booked and get to St. Louis. So we do that. I'm right back at the same hotel that I was at. It was like this really weird deja vu thing. The Avs win in equally spectacular fashion to close out the series. And I just remember it was one of those things we were all talking, like leaving the arena, like, okay, worth it to have to come back and do this crazy thing. So I had a really early flight. And I remember being worried that I said, I'm going to wake up and there's not going to be Ubers. I'm going to have to wait a long time for a car. So I set, and I don't remember what the exact times were. I had something like I was planning on leaving my hotel at 5. My flight was at 7. So at 4:15, my alarm goes off, and that was my check for Uber's alarm. And I looked, and they were everywhere. 2 minutes away through, I was like, I'm good. I closed my eyes, and then it was one of those like, man, I feel way more rested than I thought I would. And it was like 6:15. Called an Uber. I told him, I was like, I'm in a hurry. He got me there, and the St. Louis airport, thankfully, is really small. There's no one in security. I was the last one on the plane. But ever since that, I'm multiple alarms, no chances for flights.
That was the whole story? No, you started telling that story to tell a different story, and I think I distracted you along the way. Was it about today's flight?
Yeah. Well, so I'm starting to get tired because I technically woke up at 4:30 Mountain Time.
Understandable.
And because I didn't get like the just a little power nap, you can power through it, then get another nap. Like I feel like I got enough sleep last night that I really shouldn't go home and nap. And now I'm just tired.
Yeah, you just crushed a Qdoba burrito. You're gonna be crashing soon.
Yeah, I had to rewrap myself.
Double the carbs. I've got 2 more conversations for us. They're both fun to guide us, ease us on our way out, so you can head to nap territory. Jesse, I don't know if you saw.
I do want to say really fast. I love Qdoba. They're not a sponsor, but I would love for them to be a sponsor. But they double wrapped my burrito today for no reason. Didn't ask for it, so I had to take it out of the first one, fucking rewrap it. I'm just too tired for that.
Well, hopefully you can get through these last 2 conversations. They'll take minimal effort from a mental standpoint.
Are you saying that I'm not mentally sharp right now?
Well, you were to start the show, but maybe the full 60 is a little tough for you tonight. We got to just end strong. Let's protect the house, park the bus, and make sure we don't get scored on late here, right? Fanatics.
God, dude, I'm so glad you brought this up.
Has been a big conversation, not only in the NHL, but in the sports world, as they're taking over a lot of the uniform making. And in the MLB, players are complaining that they made their pants see-through.
Have you seen the pictures?
I have not seen the pictures.
You haven't seen the pictures?
I'd rather not see men's see-through pants.
So to me, there's two pictures that are bad. You can see stuff. On the whole, they're just bad because you can see all the jerseys tucked in. Like even in the instances where you can't see actual
hole.
When I said on the whole, I was like, that was maybe not the best phrase to use for this topic. But again, let's even say that there was like a mandatory base layer that players had to wear so you couldn't see anything. You can see the striping on the jerseys and all that stuff tucked in. The worst one, dude, was Fanatics Twitter replied to an MLB player, a young MLB player who was sharing a picture of the jersey sitting in his stall. Like, man, this is crazy. And the quality on it was so bad. The numbers were crooked. Then again, the player didn't call any of that out. He was like, wow, I have an MLB jersey. And Fanatics replied, they were like, wow, that jersey doesn't look right. Why don't you DM us so we can make this right? And it's like, this is an MLB authentic sitting in a player's stall. And so I have been massively of the opinion for the last year that everyone was just being weenies. That everyone needed to relax.
So was I, but not anymore.
The Fanatics stuff was way overblown.
Mm-hmm.
Here is a little known fact. Fanatics has actually been the ones making the jerseys for both the NHL and the MLB for multiple seasons now. What's changing this season in the MLB was they partnered more openly with Nike to change the fabrics, led by Fanatics. And then on the NHL side, they signed, I believe it was a 3-year agreement saying they are not allowed to touch materials, design, anything. So for the next 3 seasons, NHL jerseys, from my understanding, should look and feel identical. The only thing that's going to be different is instead of the 3 stripes, it'll be the Fanatics F on the back. That's in the contract. But right now, today, Fanatics makes the game-worn jerseys. They're manufactured there, licensed by Adidas. So that's why I have been like, everyone's freaking out and they don't even realize they're already wearing the product, this, that, and the other. But now seeing all this stuff coming out of spring training, I'm like, holy shit. Apparently, yeah, the fabrics that the fabrics they're using are obviously thinner and less quality. The numbers, the spacing, and the alignment, I've seen several examples of, again, MLB players that look terrible, let alone the replicas they're selling. And then the third thing that I was reading just this morning on the plane is that apparently an MLB player used to go in at the beginning of spring training and would get completely custom fitted. You'd go in and you'd get your pants fit, the shirt that goes under your actual button-up shirt fitted. You get that fitted. You'd tell them, I want longer sleeves, shorter sleeves. I need this tightened up here. I want my pants to hit me here, but I want this to go to there. And the tailor would be there, and then a week later, whatever, you'd get a giant box with all your uniforms cut to your exact specs. This year, I guess they scanned last year 300 MLB players. They did a full body scan, and they have taken that down to, I believe it was 3 options. So now, instead of getting, can I get this up here tighter? Can I get that? It's which of these 3 cuts? Slim, regular, relaxed. And the only customization they'll do is length of sleeve and length of pant. The pant customization, you have 2 options. You have short or full length. And so I was reading this morning that I guess there's players with, I don't know exactly, I think they keep their socks up, the stirrups, who are like, I normally get stirrups at, this length. And now my only options are this or this, as I punch myself in the face with this microphone. And like, that's the stuff to me that reading that, like, that's problematic.
It doesn't really translate to the NHL though.
No, at least not that we know of. Like we see the game jerseys, like they are not the same as what you buy, even as the authentic ones. Like there's different cuts and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe there are certain things where players ask for jerseys to fit in a certain way over their shoulder pad. I don't know. But like the fact that they've eliminated customization and stuff like that tells me that they are cutting corners.
Just heading the wrong direction.
For cost, right. And so this is the first time in the last year that I am on board with a lot of the apprehension around the NHL switching to Fanatics.
All right. I'm glad I brought that conversation up. You had a good response to it. Finally, Jesse, this one's fun, and I bumped into this on Twitter. Of the 10 players to ever play in the NHL with the longest names, 2 of them were on the Avalanche.
Connor Walchuk's got to be one.
No.
Really? Okay. Are you asking who?
I'm asking seeing if you can guess the 2 players with the longest names in NHL history.
Can you give me like how many letters?
No.
Okay.
I will say that they're both French.
Dave Andreychuk?
Is that French? Does that sound like a French name to you?
I don't know.
Dave Andreychuk. Hey, bonjour, mon ami. Je m'appelle Dave Andreychuk.
Well, that's also not how you would say it. I don't know if it was like Andreychuk. I don't know.
Think recent. Think Lake Tahoe. Think
Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, who? Remember, he thought he was going to be skating on the lake itself.
So, hold on. Are you talking about first and last name?
Yeah, his full name.
Okay. I thought you meant their last name, like it was actually spelled out on the back.
Full name.
Pierre-Edouard Bellemare?
There's one.
Yeah. I don't know. This is a dumb game now. I thought you were talking
because you're terrible at it.
No.
Jean-Sébastien Giguère.
You're really just talking about guys with hyphenated names.
Well, they're the longest names in NHL history.
That was silly.
You're silly.
That was a bad one.
Whatever.
I thought you meant like the Avs had 2 guys with names that had to like arch all the way from the bottom of each number.
No, that's not what I said.
I said I thought that was
if that's what I was
meant.
asking, that's what I would have said.
But you said they had the longest name. I didn't know you meant. Oh, could you tell me the first, middle, and last name of the 2 longest names in NHL history?
No middle names. There's no middle names.
Finish this show. That was a bad way to finish it. Come up with something else.
Way to go, Jesse. That's 2 podcasts in a row he ruins by just yelling at us, doesn't he? Thanks for hanging out with us.
Ruined it.
This has been Guerilla Hockey with JJ featuring Jesse. We'll be back next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Bye.